the music's on, the disco ball has dropped, and it's time to get this party started. You're listening to episode 42 of DiscoTrek, a Star Trek Discovery After Party podcast here on the Tricorder Transmissions Network. I'm your host, Heather Barker, and with me at the turntable is my co-host, my favorite Jeff, who apparently is not that guy. Spoiler alert. He is Jeff Hewlett. Hi, Jeff.
Heather has flipped my cards for this week already. Apologies for my my muffled voice. I have a major allergy attack, so waiting for the meds to kick in.
Those allergies came at you like all those little drones out of the Section 31 ship, I think.
All the little bits of pollen and buds that are outside the house. I live surrounded by wood, so this is allergy central.
I feel for you. For those who aren't familiar with DiscoTrek, we're a community-based Star Trek discotheque of sorts, focusing on each episode of Star Trek Discovery as they air. Tonight, we're discussing the very last episode of Season 2. The title is still very appropriate. It is Such Sweet Sorrow, Part 2, certainly how I'm feeling tonight. With us to talk about the episode are two members of the Star Trek community. The first, I think he's been around before. We all out there on the interwebs within all these podcasts, we meet up. We go on others' podcasts. So welcome, Rick Tatro. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about your network.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. I am the founder and host of the Infinite Diversity Podcasting Network. Right now, we have 3 shows on the network. Starbase: The Next Generation, which is just a general all-around genre fiction podcast. Open the Iris, which is our Stargate SG-1 watch-through show. And Infinite Diversity, which I will be getting you, Heather, and hopefully you, Jeff, on very soon to talk about, where I interview people who have some tie to Star Trek, whether they're fans or worked on the show or something like that, who are doing things to bring light and diversity and wonderfulness into the world.
I like that. I think that's the best. If you're going to do a Star Trek podcast, like that's pretty much the best kind of Star Trek podcast. So I'm super excited and look forward to popping onto your network. Our next guest, it's her first podcast ever, guys. We are so, so happy to have Jane here. Hi, Jane. Will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, we met via Twitter, where I am JaneNX01 on Twitter, which indicates that Enterprise up till now has been my favorite Star Trek series. I have been watching Star Trek since I first saw Devil in the Dark in 1969.
My favorite episode.
Yes, and I was so scared. I was 4. I hid behind the couch, so it was quite the introduction to the franchise for me. But I've been a Trekkie ever since, and I'm really excited to be watching Star Trek now because it's the first time since Next Generation that I've been able to watch it in real time with other fans. So it's pretty exciting. And this is pretty advanced considering we used Usenet back in the TNG days, and it was a little bit clunkier, but there was still a good community, good active community. So anyway, thanks for having me, and here I am.
Well, we are so excited to have you here. We love being the podcast gateway, or the gateway podcast, I guess it would be. We find that once you start podcasting, you never stop. So that just means that we'll have you on again in the future sometime, I'm sure.
Okay, if I don't make a fool of myself, we'll see how it goes.
We're all making fools of ourselves while simultaneously not making fools of ourselves. So
I do it every week.
We're going to hop into our discussion of the episode in just a minute. First, we have some announcements. They are not the same as always. I'm not going to go into how the show functions because Jeff and I are actually going to take a bit of a break. We've not quite determined the extent of the break. We don't know if we're going to we're not going to completely disappear because there are some supplemental episodes that will come out. However, we may do some sporadic episodes. I think both Jeff and I have a lot going on in our personal lives, as well as prepping for STLV and all the fun parties. So just hang in there. Keep following us on Twitter and Facebook, and keep an eye out in case you see a tweet pop up encouraging you to be on the show. But we won't be doing this weekly, so just be aware of that. However, we still do have a Patreon, and we would still love your support. So, Jeff, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Yes, you can find our Patreon page at patreon.com/the Tricorder Transmissions or by visiting our website, thetricordertransmissions.com, and clicking the orange Patreon link in the upper right-hand corner. So if you enjoy what we do here on DiscoTrek or any of our other Tricorder Transmission shows, please think about joining our growing list of patrons. So becoming a patron will give you instant access to our unedited episodes and some other material that we've been releasing, including early access stuff and some video content for some of the higher tiers. And speaking of tiers, I'm not going to list them all, but we do have some brand new tiers that we've been breaking out on the site for different pledge levels. So feel free to visit the page and see all the great benefits that you get at all the different levels when you're thinking of signing up. So thank you for considering it. And we have no Patreon news this week. It's been a little bit quiet, but thank you once again to all of our existing patrons. We love you all.
Yes, we do. Always happy to watch our Tricorder tribe grow, especially as our network does. Keep an eye out. We have a new podcast that will be dropping fairly soon. That is Faraday, and that is the Gaming Play podcast. So keep an eye out. Now, all right. I don't even know where to start here. Spoiler alert. I don't know, like if you haven't watched the episode, stop right now. There will be spoilers abound. So go watch the episode, then come back and listen. The show is segmented into 3 parts. We have Drop the Record, which is our opening remarks and reactions. Play a New Track is where we explore what we learned that's new about the universe and Discovery. And Spin It Again is our look back at standout moments, characters, scenes, themes, anything you feel is worth a little extra attention. Oh my gosh. I can't even with this episode. I can't even with this season. I watched this episode and I told my partner, like, as I was bawling, I have to do a podcast about this. Like, how am I going to get through a show without crying? And I think I'm going to be able to do it. But I watched the episode. I only got to watch it twice, which I'm kind of sad about. But even the second time, I cried. So I am so excited to hear what you have to say. Rick, what did you think about this season finale?
I think I'm going to be that guy this time.
Oh, no!
Oh, no.
I think it was a beautiful execution of a deeply flawed script. There was so much great in this episode. And yes, I shed a tear or two myself, but I had some serious problems with the main peril and also with the way they took out a character who I very much liked and was very disappointed in her departure because it was kind of silly. But overall, I loved it. I've watched it 2.5 times. It's certainly better than season 1's finale.
Yeah.
And I don't think, everybody did their jobs great. It's just, I don't know what it is. The writers are so good at doing such a great job all season, and then they just can't seem to stick the landing at the end. And I'm still aboard. I'm still looking forward to season 3. I'm glad where it's going, and I'm sure we'll get to that later. But it left me a little flat.
Well, I'm going to come back and ask you specifically about those things.
Yeah.
But first, I want to hear from everybody else. So, Jane, what did you think?
Oh my gosh. It was almost overwhelming. Well, it wasn't even almost overwhelming. It was just so overwhelming. The entire episode to me, I was crying both times during a good portion of it, like serious full-on sobbing. It was pretty ugly. And for me, it moves so fast sometimes that, and I think this is a function of there only being 14 episodes per season, that I sometimes feel like we're just barreling through everything so fast, and I want to slow down a little bit and get to know what's going on a little more than, the short treks are great. They give us a little bit of background, but I almost need a little more than that. Overall, though, I thought the episode was great. The death that we're speaking of was very upsetting to me because I kind of had an attachment to her as another middle-aged lady. I was really happy to see a middle-aged lady up there being a boss. It was great. I can't wait till the next one. And there were some moments that just literally took my breath away. That scene where Discovery's following Michael into the wormhole.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like that was just an astounding shot. So it was. I mean, it's great. Can't wait for more, but I need a break.
Yeah, and so
It's almost too much sometimes.
Jeff can vouch for my very real quote of
Mm-hmm.
of I need a break. Like I do.
Mm-hmm. We all
And
do.
yeah, it has. I last season also felt like a lot of the episodes there was just a lot going on. And I still enjoyed last season. I definitely feel that these two seasons were very different. Um, and I liked this season a lot more. But yeah, like I definitely feel that Star Trek Discovery plays a lot more like a movie now. Um, and a lot of that involves the action. And there were even parts where some of the action, like for me, the scenes where they were kind of revisiting all the Red Angel signals, like that I didn't really need all that. But when I watched it the second time, I was like, okay, the fact that this keeps popping in is kind of helping move the other stuff along. There were some episodes where I had I think Oval for Charon is one where it would go from super fast paced to just a couple characters talking, and so I had trouble like coming out of the crazy fast pace and going into something slow, and then I'd get bored and I'd want to go back to the action. And so in this episode, I didn't feel that way at all because it was just go, go, go. There were a couple quiet moments, but for me, they didn't take away. But Jeff, what about you?
Well, good news. As you said, Mr. Negative has been sent 930 years in the future. So he is not here today. Seriously, I thought this was a great season ender. Something that Rick had said, especially in comparison to the season 1 season finale, that kind of left me feeling like, ugh. But I felt like this did wrap up a lot of loose ends that were out there, gave us at least some satisfaction on quite a few of them, and it leaves us with a lot of things to speculate about for season 3. It also frees Discovery from the current canon and timeline, and will hopefully allow for more exploration and kind of a more of a free form season next season. Maybe not necessarily tied to a certain arc, but we'll see how that goes. And I'm very curious as to what the newly quote unquote fixed timeline will look like in the future. I'm imagining all the life on all those planets just popping back up after Burnham and Discovery went through and saved the future. So I'm interested to see, who's out there. Starfleet's still around, the Klingons still around, who's still around. It's going to be interesting when they get there. Some good performances as always. The score again was great. And I think these are some of the biggest and most epic space battles we've seen in Star Trek. It was huge and cinematic. Actually, I hate to even make this reference, but it reminded me a lot of Star Wars battle scenes. Sorry, guys.
No, look, not to interrupt you, but I'm glad that you said that because it's certainly something I have seen as both a compliment and a criticism. And I'm on board with it being more of a compliment because, like, there's no verses. Star Trek and Star Wars are two very different things.
Yes, they're very different.
And I think that Star Wars has, in these more recent films, been working towards having a more profundity to the writing. I think that anything that makes Star Trek more marketable to a broader audience is a good thing. And one of the major complaints I've heard about Star Trek in the entirety of the time I've been a Star Trek fan is that it's boring or it's too slow. And there's criticism within that I'm not going to bother addressing because Star Trek is not for everyone. Okay. But if some of these scenes kind of bring that Star Warsian action and graphics to Star Trek and then attract people because of that, I'm on board. So it's not Star Trek being similar to Star Wars in that way is totally a compliment in my book.
Yeah, I was looking at it as more of a compliment as well. I think the only thing missing from this, from a Star Wars perspective, is that hotshot pilot that can't get shot down. We didn't have that. Poe or Luke or whomever, Anakin. Oh, wait a second.
Oh, we have a Poe.
I mean, Burnham got hit by something for a minute, and she was okay.
She was fine. She was fine, but Guys, I think a wormhole is opening. I think Mr. Negative is back from the future for a second here.
Oh no!
Oh yes, but this is not about Discovery. This is I just bringing this up for a second because I don't know if this happened to you guys, but it confused the living hell out of me. I pay the $10 a month for no ads, and there was an ad on the beginning of my Discovery episode that totally threw me off. I thought I was watching a different show. So I was like trying to figure it out. I'm like, is my CBS app screwing up? I'm force closing it and rebooting my Apple TV. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. And I fast forwarded a little. Oh, and there's Discovery. So I was like, wait a minit. I thought this wasn't supposed to get an ad, but I got an ad. So, okay, Mr. Negative's leaving now. I didn't know that happened to anybody else, but it really annoyed me.
It happened to everybody. It
happened to me.
Yeah, it was specifically like CBS responded to somebody's tweet and said, yes, this was a promotion for a CBS All Access original show. So it's something that we're going to be doing from time to time. And I love you, Jeff. But at the end of the day, like, it was not even a minute long. Like, God forbid, everybody. Like, if you want your 5 cents, I will send you 5 cents.
No, it's not about the money. I was just very confused by it because I'm used to seeing the CBS All Access blue swash when it started, and I saw something else with this my app screwing up, and as it showing me a different show by mistake or something. I don't know what's going on. So I was just confused.
I did get that. I remember now, but the thing looked so forgettable that I've forgotten now that it just completely went out of my head. Not Star Trek, not interested.
Yeah, it didn't look like a good show to me. I don't know, but regardless, I'm like, it's a minute of my life, not a big deal. So let's move back on. Let's move over. Not to continue the negativity, but everyone knows I do like to have constructive conversations about things that we don't like. So, Rick, what specifically with the writing didn't work for you?
My biggest problem, and this goes to both halves of this episode, in the first half, when they go to Zahia, and presumably Zahia's communications are working, I would assume, but they don't call for help. Sarek and Amanda show up, and they come and go, and they don't go to get help. They're getting ready to jump away, and Michael's like, no, as long as we have the data and Leland's going to find us, we have to go into the future. You've got a spore drive that's working. You could go, is there a difference between going 950 years in the future or a distance that's 950 years away at maximum warp, where you can strategize and plan and take all the time you need to try to deal with that data instead of this manufactured urgency because there's 30 ships chasing you who only have warp drive. And it was like, it was like the gravity boots in Star Trek VI. This one major plot point that was so silly that I had trouble getting over it.
Yeah, I don't know. If anybody else wants to, I don't have an answer. My understanding is that it's just far too dangerous to have that knowledge in the ship there. And at the end of the day, we have to find a good reason to do what we're going to do. My question at the end of this episode and talking about kind of speculating about where it was going to go was how far in advance, like when did this plan come into effect to do this with the show? Because I don't think it was there from day one in the writer's room.
No, and I understand that Brian Fuller kind of left them in a place that none of the writers really wanted to be, and they've been kind of digging themselves out of that hole for 2 seasons now.
Yeah.
I just I don't even know what all they had to do was like maybe knock the spore drive out, and then it would have been just okay, our only other option is to go through time because we can't get away, we can't jump to Andromeda where they can't possibly reach us. It's Star Trek has done that to me a lot of times, like when in Star Trek Generations where they separate the ship and then the star drive section explodes because the core breaches, but there's not even an attempt to eject the core because maybe the movie writers didn't know that could be done. One line, I can't eject the core, and it would have been fine, but it just kept staring at me in the face like, why didn't you do that?
So, I mean, they felt that Control had evolved to the point that it was going to find them no matter what. And they only had a certain amount, like they basically had the choice of trying to re-energize or the spore drive. Like the spore drive wasn't usable because why?
It wasn't. There was nothing wrong with the spore drive.
I thought that there was.
No, that was my problem. They jumped to Zahia with no trouble at all, and then all of a sudden they're going to follow us anywhere we go. Well, you can go a whole lot farther faster than they can.
Well,
am I wrong? Because I thought in the first part of
the last episode for at least for a while.
Yeah, in the last episode, it was essentially disabled, and so they were going to have to either use everything to charge the battery, or like they weren't. Like there was a specific reason that I don't.
Well, yeah, it was. You're right. They were going to use the power they could have used for the spore drive to charge the crystal.
Right. So I think that in that case, if they had jumped, then they might have been stuck in dead. Like, regardless of how far it was, they would have been kind of stuck in dead water for a while with the possibility of Control finding them. Like, I think we're supposed to assume that Control is going to come after them regardless. It's going to outsmart them. It's going to know all of their moves. And so there's no real way of escape. And so then that leaves them with that choice. Like, we need to go now. So this is our option. I do think that the criticism about like how quickly everything happened within these 2 episodes is fair.
Yeah. Well, there's another perspective on that. And I totally get Rick's argument and it makes total sense to me. But the other thing I was thinking about was there was a small little kind of a toss out line where when they were scanning and they saw Leland was the only living thing on all of those ships, means that Control killed every single person on all of those ships. So it was already hell-bent on destroying sentient life. And if it figured out that, okay, well, they're too far away for me to get the data, I'm just going to start wiping out life until I can get to it at some point, they could have just wiped out everybody. You know, Control could have just gone right to Earth, wiped out everybody on Earth while Discovery was out there dinking around in Andromeda. You know, that
was Control's goal, right? That was the ultimate goal, was to wipe out all intelligent life.
And didn't necessarily need to be sentient to do that, because it already showed it had no care for any sentient life by killing all the people on all those ships.
Yeah, that's a good point. I totally would love some headcanon to get me off of this train, because I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, I no, it's a tough spot. Like earlier in the season, I was in a place where I was just kind of stuck, and I'm like, this isn't jiving with me. I'm not getting what I normally get out of Discovery, and that's a horrible feeling. Like, I want to love what I love, so it's difficult to wrap your head around when some of that happens. I know that for me, like, again, I just don't think too hard. And some of the criticisms with this episode, and it might have played into Cornwell's death, with that also being a little too easy. Like, that was the only option. So there was some criticism of like, why didn't they beam her out? And why didn't they use one of the little Wall-E robots to pull the lever? This is where it just comes down to, like, this is how television works. And I don't know what Jane Brooks' future is. She is a working actress, so she does have other commitments, and I don't know if she's on her way to do something else, or if the show just said, okay, let's do this way. I know that from my perspective, I have loved that character. I have admired her for her ability to call people on their BS. That is a quality that I admire. For some reason, she intimidates the heck out of a lot of viewers.
I love her. I think she's great.
I adored her. I'm very sad that she was the one they picked to kill.
Yeah, and anytime I post about her on Twitter, like, there's all these this weird pushback. So I think probably because she calls people out on their BS, some people don't like that. But the point for me is that I have deeply admired her. She's not been like a favorite of mine. But when that happened, and of course, like, we knew the minute that she saw the lever to pull, like, we knew what was going to happen. I cried so much. Like, I just didn't expect it. And it was like, in that moment, I started to realize like how much she actually has meant to me, whether I was cognizant of it or not. And I felt like if they were going to pick a character to kill off, the way that they did that, and her making that choice to sacrifice herself, and telling Pike, whatever your future holds, you've got this, basically, like, you can handle it. So like, even in that moment, just being giving and giving someone else confidence in their future. I thought she died a very honorable death in saving the Enterprise and saving all of the crew, this crew that we have grown. Like, a lot of women I know have loved number one forever. I think everyone out there loves Spock, and now Pike has like the biggest following of any Star Trek captain I've seen. But the fact that now I know that this amazing woman saved all of that makes her even more legendary. So oh no, then I won't ask you, Jane. I was like, I don't know. For me, it was the total opposite of your experience, Rick.
Well, okay. Part of the problem may be because, my job involved, I'm the technical director of a theater. So I'm kind of like the engineer of my ship.
Mm-hmm.
And I know every nut and bolt and circuit in my theater. And number one should know every nut and bolt and circuit in her ship. And if any blast door has a manual release, all of them do. That should have been the first thing they went to when they went into that room, not diddled around for 15 minutes and then have a total stranger to the ship go, hey, what's that lever do?
Well, I don't know. Do we know
that kind of bothered me.
Well, like, has Cornwell, like, has she been on a Constitution class? She's been helping with everything, but I don't know that she's ever been the captain of or been on.
That's what I mean, is number one should have known that right away.
Oh, okay, right. I'm seeing that there. Okay, I got confused for a minute. Jane, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, I never got the impression that Cornwell was usually a crew member. She's in Starfleet, but I kind of got the impression that she was back at headquarters. She was some kind of, higher up person in the organization, but not necessarily on a ship all the time.
Yeah. I think that ultimately, like, my understanding, you can't transport people in the ship. Now, I know you can't transport people out, like, when shields are up and stuff, but can you transport someone from room A to room B?
Yes and no.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, didn't they talk about that in the Next Generation, where I don't think they could do it in TOS, but I think in Next Generation they started doing it. So we're talking about the transporter isn't that finely tuned yet.
Okay.
Well,
it's my impression.
In Day of the Dove in TOS, the one with the Klingons and the swords, that was like the first time they beamed Kirk and Spock into engineering. And Scotty was like, this is really dangerous. We shouldn't be doing this. But that's, you're right. That's site to site. That's beaming from one part of the ship to another.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just beaming her out of the room into the transporter room shouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah, that I'm not sure. Like,
too much interference from the torpedo.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
Hand wave that away with there's magnetic or whatever in there, and
I feel, yeah, it's one of those. Again, it's just I don't think too much, because at the end of the day, we're not going to rewrite the episode, right?
Yeah.
No.
So I had to look at, did this work for me? And for me, it worked. It worked tremendously. For Rick, it may not have worked.
Well, it's Arium all over again. You didn't have to blow her out of the airlock. They could have beamed her over, but
yeah, but like, Arium worked for, like, again, I think there are just certain levels of, well, not levels of storytelling, but certain techniques that it works for some people. It doesn't work for others. And it's okay both ways. I understand the criticisms about Arium, regardless of how I feel about it. And I think, we talk about, well, Arium's a whole different thing. Like, her death is still different from this death. I mean, at least people, this is a character that we got to know pretty well, I'd say. But I devastated for sure. I was in awe of that. I was in awe of a lot in this episode because for me, like, I understand where writing is lacking in places. It's not something, again, that like really, I don't know. I don't think too much about it. I don't know what else to say about that.
I'll freely admit I do think too much about it.
Yeah, well, and it's that's not a bad thing. It's just, for me, if I start thinking about something to the point where it's making me really dislike a thing, then why am I punishing myself? Like I enjoyed it to begin with, so I don't want to teach myself to dislike something that I originally liked, unless someone else is showing me a perspective that says, well, you may not have seen this.
I think everybody has their level of what they're willing to let slide, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of that writing stuff I'm willing to let slide because I enjoy the space stuff, I enjoy the Star Trek universe, I enjoy the characters and the ensemble and everything. And a lot of times, really, Sarek and Amanda, you're absolutely right. They could have taken a message back. I'm like, why didn't I think of that during the episode? But they absolutely could have. I'll let it slide. I'm enjoying the episode enough that I'm not going to let it bother me.
Yeah.
But everybody has a different level of what they're going to not let bother them.
Well, totally. And like at the end of the day, like I thought about what are my criticisms of this episode that I loved so much. Like, even the little robot guys, like the Wally dudes, they kind of came out of nowhere, and I was like, what? Okay. But they didn't do anything to take away from my enjoyment. I just thought, oh, that's interesting.
They were kind of goofy, but kind of fun.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. My partner was like, oh, that's fun. And I was like, okay, yay. But the things for me, like, I think control was mitigated too easily. Like I kind of thought that control would be more than just the one person, just in Leland. But that is what worked to serve the story. So okay.
Maybe that's how the Borg learned their lesson, Heather.
Oh no. Like the only other minor thing is I wanted, like, what happened with the Kelpians in the Baul.
Yeah. What was going on there? Where were the Baul? Did they just take their ships?
Kelpians ate them all.
I had headcanoned that into, when we last saw the Kelpians in Serana. Serana was wanting to work towards peace. And so I was like, well, maybe they got there, but the fact that there were no Baul on the fighters kind of makes me wonder what exactly happened. And it would be great if we got a short trek. Although I don't know that 15 minutes or less is going to do that justice. So I don't know if we'll ever find out that answer. So
I did love seeing her again. I was really happy to see her again. But the Baul are so physically different from the Kelpians. I was like, how is she fitting into that fighter? Because shouldn't their fighters be configured for the Baul?
For goo?
Like, what? All right, whatever. Moving on. I love her. We're going to go with it. So,
like, where was their pool of goo to sit in?
Exactly. Yeah.
There are questions there that I do wonder about. But at the end of the day, I was very caught up in like watching these two badass women come help the fight. Like I did not, like, I expected we would see Poe. I never thought we'd see Serana. And the last time that we saw her, I was kind of left thinking, holy, like, how is she going to do this? She's such this is, yeah, it sounds terrible to say, like, she's such a nice, calming, wants to work towards peace. And women like that could certainly be leaders as well. But it was like, how are they going to get there? And whoa, Serana's badass. She's just, it blew me away. And I feel bad for ever thinking, like, oh, she's so peaceful. How will she do this? Because she obviously showed me.
Well, remember how Saru turned into a badass after he got rid of his ganglia. So
that is very true. Now we're ganglia free. There's no more fear. So, I like this. I didn't even think about that. Yay, this is why I like to podcast, because you remind me of things I forget. All right, so let's move over to play a new track where we talk about what we learned new. Jane, do you feel confident going first?
Well, the two things that popped out for me were, we've certainly discovered now why we've never heard of the spore drive before. Because if they're going to take it off into the future and nobody's allowed to talk about it, okay, it's gone. That's why. So that's been fixed, and people can stop complaining about it. Thank you very much.
They're still going to complain.
I know people complain all the time. I just ignore it. And, I'm sorry, but Leland, at the end, he sounded like a Borg.
Ooh.
His voice was very Borgy. And correct me if I'm wrong. Don't correct me because I'm not wrong. I think I honestly think that we've hit the origin of the Borg now.
We will see. I mean, we definitely talked about that a couple of the 2 episodes ago. I don't know when it was the hot speculation of the week. We for sure did. I don't know.
It was his voice that convinced me, because I kind of was like, hey, yeah, the Borg, we've done it to death. But when he talked, and when Gant, the guy who was a couple episodes ago, who was the right, he sounded like a Borg too. And I was like, So that makes me very suspicious. It was the voice.
I mean,
not even nano things. It was the voice.
We will see what happens. I think if we get that, it might come like in the Section 31 show. I don't know. I'm curious to see what happens for sure. I don't know. Rick, Jeff, either of you have an opinion?
I just to no.
You don't want the Borg.
I'm in the camp of, if they do that, I will be very, very, very disappointed. Because it is, at least as, okay, I hate to use the C word, but as far as established continuity at this point, the Borg have been well entrenched in the Delta Quadrant for quite some time, for like millennia. So for this to be the origin of the Borg, they'd have to do some more time travel shenanigans that would just be really annoying to me.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Jeff?
Well, we didn't mention the fact that the Section 31 pods used a refractive lattice shielding, so that shows that they're modifying systems like the Borg do. So that's another interesting nod. And
that's a good point.
Something that, and this is something that might ruffle Rick's feathers, but this is one thing I had to mention later on that I thought could be problematic in the future. Leland's nanoprobes are still on Discovery in the future now.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? I mean, I don't think necessarily that they're dead. They're magnetized to the floor, but who knows? Maybe they're not dead. Time travel shenanigans.
Yeah. That was, why didn't they scrub the mission when they realized Leland was on board the ship?
And why did he come on? This is another thing that bothered me from earlier that was annoying to me, talking about weird writing things. Why did he come on the bridge, shoot a bunch of people, and then leave? Why did he go to the bridge at all?
Yeah.
I was like, what is he doing there? It was a weird
drama.
I guess.
I think that,
moving on, I guess.
No, well, real quick, I think that him coming to the bridge and that scene playing out differently was a way to let the audience know that things were changing. And it wasn't necessarily the future that Burnham saw and Reno saw when they touched the crystal.
Yeah. That's good. I accept that.
I will accept
that. Rick, what about you? What about new stuff you learned?
Ethan Peck looks like he's 16 without a beard.
Oh man, yeah. I'm all for a bearded Spock.
Like, oh no, he's a dog. Okay, moving on.
I think Nan and Giorgio make an awesome team, and I want them to get their own series.
Heck yeah. Yum yum. I'm down.
And I'm glad to see that Starfleet is still filling the walls and ceilings of their ships with rocks.
I'm getting more excited about Section 31 show. I was thinking
the vibe that Nan might be on it.
I don't know, but as long as she stays around, I'm good, because she, like, I am in love with her. She's very different, I think, from a lot of women characters that we've seen in Star Trek. I don't think we've seen anybody like her before. I know, like, her yum yum comment was a little confusing to some people. Like, I don't get why she made that comment there. That was weird. And that's just like her spicy personality, which I can be like that sometimes. And I just absolutely adore it. Like, she's the best. I don't know what to say. I'm really excited to see. Like, I assume she's back. I know there was some worry because when we left her, I think she was on the ground recovering from the fight.
The last time I watched it, I tried to see if she was still moving when Leland and Giorgio ran out. You couldn't tell.
I saw her move some, so I think
Did you? Okay.
I think she's gonna be fine. I don't know what the future will hold with the whole Section 31 thing. We can now assume that season 3, since Giorgio is in the future and Ash Tyler is now the head of section, or not the head of section. Is he the head of Section 31 or just the?
Oh, he's in charge of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get to this journey and see her end up where I assume she's gonna go back to this time. I don't know, guys. I don't know. And that's what I love about it, is I just have no clue. But I think Michelle Yeoh has just been great. I loved her this season, but I especially loved her in this episode because she is just, again, like, I don't know. I don't know enough about Section 31 to go into some big spiel about it. But I think that the whole gray line area and the, are they good? Are they bad? I'm looking forward to how this is going to be explored. And I'm excited that she's a catalyst. I was thinking today, like, there was a lot of talk about, like, is she a redeemable character? I think I did a Twitter poll about it or whatever. And then I was thinking about her as compared to, like, Kai Wynn. And, like, Kai Wynn was never portrayed in any way that was redeemable.
No.
So she was not a character that was ever out to be a redeemable character. And frankly, I don't know that Giorgio ever that will ever be the path. She is on the ship. She definitely helped them. She and Michael, despite the differences they've had, they are affectionate. Like Mike, she was included when Michael said she loved everybody last episode, but she is still a very dark, twisted person. She gives I don't know, I got like this little bit of horror vibe, and so I don't know what way the Section 31 show is going to go, but I'm really super excited because I hope we just get more from her. That's my spiel about that. I'll move on from that. Jeff, did you have stuff that you learned?
Oh yes, Saru has joined the ranks of such prestigious aliens as Spock and General Chang, and being very well read in Earth literature. Having read Sun Tzu, I thought that was a very nice nod. Seemed very Star Trek to me, very in line with other people we've seen in Trek before. And I kind of scratched my head. A head scratching moment like you did, Heather, with the little Wally robots. But I didn't realize that Starfleet vessels had hundreds of little ships within them that they could launch in battle scenes.
Well, Discovery did.
Yeah, but I mean, just wow, that's a lot of little escape pods and shuttlecrafts and stuff. That just seems like very convenient to have all of those little ships contained within, and enough crew to fly them all. So interesting.
Well, I think they're just like their own. I don't know that they were controlled by anything. I think they were like Roomba, like just autonomous.
Oh, they take voice commands from Captain Pike.
No, they were all manned.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Amazing.
Like oh, well, that's like people in them manned.
Yeah,
that was the impression I got.
Yeah.
Number one said she commandeered. She was adapting shuttlecraft, worker pods, and the tactical pods. Those things they used in the beginning of the series.
Yeah.
When they went to rescue the Hiawatha.
All right. Well, people need to tweet at me because I feel like I can't be the only one that thought they were just autonomous robots. Like, I did not think there were people in them.
Thinking about it from that perspective, if there were actually people in every single one of them, how much of the Discovery crew didn't go into the future with Discovery and in fact was still back on the battlefield?
Yeah, I don't know. I need feedback because I don't like, even looking at them, I don't know how you'd put a person in a tiny R2D2 with arms and a small torso.
No, not the little fixer robots.
Oh, okay. So I'm just totally confused then.
Okay. I'm talking about the fighters, the fighter ships, not the little R2 Rosie the robots.
Okay. And they came out, they were in Discovery, then they came out. Okay. Well, whatever. Ships, lots of ships everywhere. There's always lots of ships. Works for me.
Well, it's a good way to get the crew off of the ship so that the only people that are going into the future with Michael are that core ensemble team, and they're the only ones that were on the ship. That was the impression I got.
Well, hopefully they have enough people to operate the ship and repair all the damage that was done.
There were more. There were all the people in sick bay.
Yeah, that's true. There were a lot of people in sick bay.
So I think that a good amount of crew still went into the future, which we just, again, didn't see that part because, and, God forbid we did see a whole crew of people getting talked to so people could complain about that small 30-second slowdown. Yeah. Okay, Jeff, what else?
I think that's about it for my Play a New Track.
Oh, no, that leaves me. I think my best new thing ever, though it apparently is not the first time that today is a good day to die has been said in Klingon.
Oh, that was a nice bit.
But the return of Laurel, you knew that Ash Tyler went to go do something. That's how we left the last episode. So you kind of assumed he was going to go get the Klingons. Never thought he'd also be bringing Serana and everyone. I wish we had gotten more, not so much more with the Klingons, but just something more with Laurel this season. I didn't get enough of Laurel, and I really enjoy her. I loved her in this. I loved the fact that she came back like a full-on Klingon queen. I don't know, that my partner and I kind of jumped up and down when she said that, because it was just really cool to kind of see her come into that. And then I think, what was her other? There was another quote that she said.
That her reign was going to be a bloodless one.
The ruin of our enemies.
Yes, both of those. I had to screen cap pretty much everything. She's like, and I thought my chancellorship would be bloodless. And then she's like, we will wade knee deep through the ruin of our enemies. It was just super amazing to see her like really embody this amazing Klingon character, and then still sort of at the end when Discovery leaves, having her there with Ash Tyler and seeing like the sensitivity of it was, I don't know that it was so much that Tyler was staying behind for Laurel, but that essentially, like, since he's going to be there for Section 31, well, I guess he didn't find out about that till after. So he's kind of back with the Klingons. And that is another kind of weird gray area that I saw mentioned on Twitter. Like, weren't the Klingons supposed to think he was dead? And now he's back having you, like, it would have been cool maybe to see him come back and however that happened.
Yeah, but that would have killed the Gandalf riding over the hill with the Riders of Rohan moment.
Yes. See, exactly. That's my point. I don't know. I'm kind of glad. Maybe we'll see more of Laurel in Section 31. I don't know. I hope it's not the last that we ever see of her. But let's see. New stuff. I kind of liked how they revealed all of when Burnham was going to jump through the wormhole and she couldn't get the coordinate set to jump to the future. And so everything kind of came together with how the signals worked.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a cool moment and like a cool way to bring it all together. And then I do think like one of my favorite things was seeing that wormhole open and seeing her go into the wormhole and then seeing the ship follow. Like, that is the coolest wormhole ever. I was kind of thinking about the wormhole in DS9 and like, oh, I like this one better. But other than that, I didn't have a lot of like new information standout moments. So let's just move on. Let's go to Spin It Again and talk about the really awesome stuff that deserves extra special attention. Rick, what do you have? What do you think is just super awesome?
I've got some great stuff for this one.
Yay.
I came out of the gate being a poopy face, but now I've got some. Now I'll talk about the good stuff. D7s everywhere.
Everyone can be happy now, right?
Poe, I love her so much. I don't know if there's any way we'll see her again on anything, but she's just I along with the Non and Giorgio buddy cop series. I want a Poe and Jayla adventure movie.
Ooh, I'm down for that.
Spock and Burnham in the shuttle bay when they did the salute and touched their hands together.
Oh,
I may have cried a little bit.
I can't think about that too much.
I appreciated that Spock's outfit has thumb holes. Like those are the best. Spock's like Gersha Phillips, woman, you deserve all the awards because the way, like the costumes in this season, especially, they were phenomenal. So that I'm putting that out into the universe.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Spock and Giorgio. I love both of their outfits.
I would cosplay both of those.
And my last thing on Spin It Again, Spock's station at the end was, especially when he turned on the spinny thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a special moment.
That was really nice.
I really think that Leonard would be so proud.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, too.
This has been my favorite, outside of the man himself, this has been my favorite iteration of Spock.
Here.
And that moment when, I'm going to start crying again, that moment when his uniform comes out of the replicator, and I'm going to cry, and you see the comm badge with the little sciences symbol on it.
Yeah.
Right, that it was Spock's comm badge. I can't even bear it. I'm getting all crying.
It's okay. I'm happy if I'm not the only one that cries. Like Heather is known for just crying on all her podcasts. I've done better this season, guys. So I'm, sorry about all the crying last season.
Oh, I openly sobbed when they walked onto the Enterprise bridge in the first half of this episode.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. I kind of just got to like a point where all I did was cry. The rest of my partner looked over at me because it's like one of those weeks where you're working like 60 hours a week. You've got all this stuff going on. You're exhausted, not in the best of moods. And we watched that and I just am bawling. He's like holding me. And then at the end of it, he's like, I'm really glad you got to see this episode today. Like it was cathartic. It was, yeah. Okay. Oh, now I'll cry. All right. Anything else, Rick?
Yeah. One last thing. Blue phasers. and all the sounds, all the weaponry sounds on the Enterprise, just they hit little 8-year-old me right in the feels.
Yeah. The Enterprise bridge sounded perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It was really nice.
Well, you're making my heart happy. All right, Jeff. Oh, right, Jane. We'll go Jane first, right?
Okay.
Sorry, I got all.
Man, there were so many moments in this that were just so good. There's this one scene where it's when Spock is still sitting in the shuttle and Burnham is out on the hull and she's getting ready to go, and he figures it out, and you can see in his face that I almost feel like he grows up, like he ages in that like 20 seconds where you're just looking at Spock's face. Do you know the moment I mean?
I think so.
It's right before he explains everything. And to me, that was like, I don't know, that was just a really moving moment. Like I saw Spock just become Spock, kind of. It was just, it was almost too much. Everything in this show was almost too much.
I screenshotted that. I had to find it, but like, yes, I do know that exact moment.
I loved hearing Reno, and I'm on record as being a big Jet Reno fan. She's like, violate the basic laws of physics? I don't think so, which was such a great callback to you can't change the laws of physics, Captain. I love that. But let's also talk about another great Saru speech. Remember in the first season, he had that great discovery is not Lorca's speech, it's ours now. And when he said, you will see a human face, but it's not a human being. I think he's really embodying a Starfleet captain there. He's telling his crew what's going to happen, but telling that it's going to be okay. And I was just really impressed with that little bit of writing. I think that Doug Jones is obviously great, but I'm really enjoying the character just really becoming more of a, I thought they were going to make him a captain. I thought Pike was going to promote him in the field right there, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was a little disappointed.
I mean, Captain Saru was like so on point for this episode.
That was a really neat moment, I thought.
Yeah, it really was. That's something else I enjoyed and paid attention to the second time I was watching this, was just how great Saru sat in that chair and commanded and under all that pressure. I mean, that was all him. So
yep.
Oh, and I almost forgot that fight scene with Giorgio, Leland, and Nan.
yeah.
With the gravity being fluctuating there, all I could think of was that scene where Fred Astaire dances on the ceiling, right? Where they rotate you know what I'm talking about, Rick, Mr. Theater.
Yeah.
They rotated the set, and I'm curious, did they rotate the set during that fight because stuff was did they?
Oh yeah.
Because stuff was falling, and I just thought that was a neat fight. And fight scenes for me, you know, sometimes they're fun and sometimes I just kind of, you know, whatever, look at Twitter during them because they don't I know they move the story forward a lot, but sometimes it's really not my scene. But that was a good one. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Anytime Michelle Yeoh gets to do a fight scene, I'm glued.
Yeah, there's that. But I just thought that the use of the gravity in that scene was fun.
One thing I have to say about Michelle Yeoh, though, is she's got a face of steel. Taking all those open hand punches and not a single bruise, that was impressive.
She's amazing.
Finally.
I love seeing, that's another reason why I just love her inclusion in this series. Like all of these fight scenes have been amazing. And yeah, like you see women defend themselves in Star Trek before, especially Klingon women, but like, holy cow, she takes it to a whole other level. And I appreciate that very, very much, for sure. All right. Did you have anything else or?
No, I can stop there. I've got tons of stuff, but I'll stop there. I'll spare you all. There was just so many really nice points in this episode, I thought.
Well, hopefully we get them between Jeff and I, and if not, then we'll come back and revisit. So Jeff, take it away.
I guess probably one of the moments that made me the most misty in this episode was the Culber speaking to Stamets in the medical bay.
My babies.
Yeah. Some of the things that he said were just so touching and sweet. I'm your family. Let me take care of you. And wherever we go, we go. Wherever we go from here, we go together.
Read it. I can read it.
I just read it. Oh, you want to read the whole thing? No, it was. It was wonderful and touching.
It really was. I think that the biggest thing, because he basically said that you were like, I tried to leave, but you're my home.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I came back. And then everything always came back around to you. And I'm sorry it took me so long to find it. And he said, I'm your family. Wherever we go from here, we go together. And I mean, I think that as a Star Trek fan, like, we're family. And that line just really struck a chord with me because I know that Discovery has been criticized for its entire 2 seasons about like not, just this not being Star Trek stuff. And it's like, I'm sorry, but Star Trek Discovery is the heart of Star Trek at this point. It has had far more of lines like this talking about family, characters telling each other that they love each other, that they've got your back. It's not that has not been in Star Trek before. I think that Discovery has just taken it to another level. But yeah, that scene was just super incredible. And I won't say more so that you can say more.
Oh, well, I'm sure everybody has feelings on that moment. But if I was doing a Trek Ranks episode in the top 5 touching moments in Trek, that would certainly be up near the top.
I love it. Rick, do you have thoughts on Colmets?
Yeah, I love that because last week on my own Discovery show, I was talking about how frustrating it was when they would keep coming together in busy rooms and then leave separately again. And on the one hand, from a storytelling point, it was good that they weren't taking the easy way. All of a sudden, everything's all better route, but it was very unsatisfying emotionally. And this was just perfect because one, Stamets couldn't talk and mess it up. So Culber actually got to talk. Because I'm positive when he came to him in engineering in the first half, he was coming in to try to reconcile, and Stamets didn't let him do it.
Yep.
So it didn't feel forced. It didn't feel like, all right, let's just get this over with so we can move on and people will stop yelling at us. It felt real, and yeah, the chemistry between the two of them is wonderful. And Wilson Cruz, that's his name, right?
Yep.
He's just, he's so wonderful with his delivery and his facial expressions and everything. You can't watch that scene and not be moved.
Yep. I bawled. Jane, what did you think?
I mean, I'm glad that it's getting resolved. I understand a lot of the community's kind of lingering resentment about killing him off and bringing him back. I mean, my daughter won't watch Discovery because they killed him in the first place, and
Oh,
yeah, and because she and I've watched Trek forever together, and so it kind of makes me sad that she doesn't share this one with me. But she's like, I'm not, I don't do that anymore. When they kill off gay people, I don't watch it, and
yeah,
I'm
yep,
totally fair, right?
yep, it
And
is.
so I'm happy that it's getting resolved, but I'm still a little pissed off about it because they wrecked it, right, for me and my daughter,
Yeah,
for me to be able to share that with her. And so I'm still a little resentful. I want them to get back together, and I absolutely love Stamets. I love him. My friends and I, we all have this head canon that he's like my great 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 grandson because our coloring is exactly the same, right? And so we always call him my grandbaby. It's a big joke, but I love them both. But I just want him to fix it so my daughter will come back.
I hope that she does, and I think her reasons are valid, and I commend her for sticking to those beliefs.
Yeah.
Um, I do think that even the last episode, I was really upset. I was like, they cannot leave this without bringing them back together, because we were kind of promised
Mhm.
immediately when he was killed that this is not the end. This is going to be an epic love story, basically. And so I've been waiting for this epic love story. And I I take all criticism and celebration from the LGBTQ plus community, because the issue of the trope and of making killing off gay characters or making them tragic is a
Mhm.
real thing, and so it definitely is very very difficult. I think that there was more here, and my only complaint about um, this is that we didn't get a more in depth understanding of what they were going through, only because like dealing with traumas like that, for both of them, I think that would have been really insightful and helpful for people that haven't experienced that might have people in their lives. Like, of course, nobody in this timeline and art in our time is going to go into the mycelial network and disappear, but
Right.
with the metaphor there, like it still could have been really helpful, um, for people in real life that are dealing with things like that. Um, However, for me, again, even when we have these big issues, and things that have touched me personally that I struggle with, it comes down to the execution. And it wasn't necessarily like this didn't wrap up for me like this big epic love story. That's not quite what I got.
Mhm.
But what I got was absolutely a very powerful love story, and it was done so well. And again, all accommodations. We got so much from Anthony Rapp in the first season. We
I
got
love
a
him so much.
we got more. Like, we still had him this season, but we got more of Culber's side
Mhm.
in this season. And what both of them have brought to those characters really really pushes it beyond just being something that was a trope for me. And I don't speak for the entire queer community out there. This is just my own personal experience, and so I hope that in time maybe your daughter will get to a place where you could even say like that's not quite what like it,
Yeah. It
I,
it made me sad, and I mean, the whole him dying in the first place was sad, but then I had this kind of extra level of, wow, you've kind of wrecked a fun thing for me,
yeah,
and
yeah.
in addition, I don't think that they've dealt with Hugh's trauma at all. I mean,
I mean, we got the
you know,
scene with Cornwell, and
20
that
seconds
little,
isn't going to cut it, I'm
yeah,
afraid. You,
it's
you know.
not, it's not. And again, that's just one of, it just always comes back to 14 episodes versus 26
Yeah. Yeah.
episodes, and the things we're not going to get.
That's time for fanfic, my friends.
Yes, get out there, people, and write the stuffs. Or write your blogs, or write about like how your own experiences with traumas have affected you and your relationships, and use this as a starting point to talk about those things, like the things that didn't get addressed in the show. If they relate to you, you have a voice and you can use that voice. So put that out there. I'm just really happy that our space boos are back together. And I sure as heck did make sure to slowly watch the scene on my phone and make sure that Stamets had a smile on his face at the end. Because
my baby.
It's like he was kind of out of it. So you're like, oh gosh, like is he okay with this? Like, and you can tell that he is also touched and moved by Culber's words, and that everything is, I think, going to be okay. And maybe in season 3 we're going to get more of this. Maybe we are going to get a little deeper of a look.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I definitely would love to see that. All right, Jeff, any more special commendations?
A couple more emotional high points from this one. I think that the coming together of Starfleet, the Klingons, and the Kelpians was a big surprise to me, and I wasn't expecting it, but I had that nerdy welling up of emotion when I saw the other ships coming in. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I just thought we got a long ways to go before the Klingons become a part of the Federation, but I like that little moment where L'Rell is coming in to help save the future. I thought that was fantastic. Very triumphant moment for this episode. I also love the Enterprise crew and Ash Tyler sticking to their stories. And number one, once again, not using her real name. Her name's just number one. Yes. Because look, and I don't know if you guys noticed it or not, Jeff. I know you're not a social media person, so you may not have seen that in, I think, 45, 48 minutes in, Captain Pike does call her Una.
Where is that scene? I've been trying to find it because people have been saying that.
I missed it. I even the second time through, I didn't see it.
Even Memory Alpha says it's there, and I went back and I put on the subtitles, and I still couldn't find it.
So subtitles aren't picking it up right.
Oh.
But I have seen, because like it didn't pick it up. I watched it on CBS All Access on my iPhone with closed captioning, and it did not pick it up. But I have seen screenshots. So I would just maybe Google it or search in Twitter, because I don't have like the specific tweet I saw with the minute mark that it was at. However, I absolutely, so I watched the episode like not being aware of that at all. So my only understanding was that she identified herself as number one. And look, it is all about that agency. And so we've had conversations on the show. We've had conversations in the representation of women. I just call it the women supplemental that I've been doing with a panel of women. And it's, when you have nicknames for characters, it just comes down to the agency of the character saying what their nickname is, especially if they're a marginalized person. And so not only did she say, I mean, she's like number one, her delivery on that was just was like, yeah, okay, I got it. Like that is all that I needed. So yeah, I'll talk more about number one in a minute. But Jeff, did you have anything else?
A couple more quick emotional high points. Serana watching Discovery going through the wormhole was a sweet moment, and my inner nerd loved the Enterprise and space dock. That was a really nice
my gosh,
touch as
yes,
well.
another sobbing moment,
and much shorter than the motion picture. So thank you for that, Discovery. And one more thing that was a head scratcher for me was the fact that Spock said to Burnham that the time crystal showed her a possible future. So that meant it also showed Reno a possible future, but it showed Pike a definite future.
That's because Pike took the crystal.
Yeah, it seems so flimsy, though.
I heard somebody compare the time crystals to Bajoran orbs, and that seemed to be an interesting parallel.
I guess, but I mean, he didn't actually break the crystal off, did he? The Klingon broke the crystal off. The Klingon,
no, but Tanavik did.
Yeah.
But he took, he was the one that came in to remove it, basically.
I guess he can't carry the grail across the threshold.
No, I mean, they specifically told him, if you take this, that will be your future. If you don't want that future, don't take the crystal.
I know what they say. It just doesn't seem to really hold up well in my mind, but that's okay.
Well, he actually touched it physically, didn't he? I mean, he held it in his hands. Didn't the other characters were just kind of in the room getting kind of some time crystal blowback was kind of
No, they touched it. Burnham put her
touched
hands.
it.
Yeah,
Bummer.
but
All
her.
right, well,
Yeah. Again,
and you know, speaking of Pike and that whole time crystal thing, did he tell Cornwell? I kind of got the impression, right, when she's
felt like
telling
it.
him, you don't think he had a conversation with her about that? Because she's like, whatever your future holds. I thought she's got to know that he had some kind of upsetting situation happen to him.
Well, he was, you know, anytime it came up, you know, you're better off not knowing. Wink, wink. So.
Yeah, I mean, he said in there, if I'm meant for a different future, this thing can't possibly go off with me in here.
Yeah, good point.
I think she was just saying from one person to another, like, you got it, you got this. Like, you can and I think that it also kind of just played into our own, like, the viewers' knowledge of what happens. So it kind of turns into a moment like that.
I think it seemed purposely vague where you could kind of put either perspective on it, because I thought it really looked like she knew, but I was like, when did they have time to talk about it?
Well, I mean, on that point, like, and Jeff, I assume that those are all of your all of your mentions. Talking about vague things. The way this show ended, like, look, I have not signed the petition for the Pike show. Okay.
No.
I don't need the Pike show. I am not going to lie that scene kind of pushed me. I still haven't signed the petition, but I kind of would love to see it. And the way that it ended felt so much like, oh, we're going to go with both ships into their journeys. And I mean, it was a great ending, you know, regardless, that part. But until I got like that much of number one, which it wasn't a lot of number one, but at least every time she was there, she just had this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. I just want to be that woman. I want to be that confident, that self-assured, that calm, that ballsy. Like, she is just, she is totally what I have always expected number one to be. I just wish we had got to see more of her badassery. So, like, I'm down for the Captain Pike show that's actually Captain Una, Captain number one. And I, you know, would have loved to see more of Spock. It definitely kind of gave me that feeling of like, yes, let's go. Like, let's boldly go. I don't know what's going to happen. I actually went on Twitter thinking, oh my God, like, did they have this show under their belt the whole time? And now they're going to announce it tomorrow, or they're going to announce it at Comic-Con, and it's still pretty vague. So
Anson Mount was pretty definitive in saying that, at least as much as we can believe when anyone's talking in Hollywood, you know, he has said that while he wouldn't be averse to such a thing, it's not in the works.
Yeah. Which, you know, I don't know. My general advice is don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
However, I totally will still be in that boat of that's something that I think would have been great to see. For all that, I haven't criticized Pike. It's just been more of a, I don't want people to look back and say that I wish I'd gotten that show instead of Discovery. That hurts my heart a bit to think about that. And it certainly does play into the fact that it's another white male captain.
Thank you.
I'm just going to be clear about that. However, I will say this. If we were going to have a show with another white male captain, which I don't want, but if we were, I think that Pike sets a pretty great example of what a man should be. And that involves treating everyone on his ship with respect, considering them all equals, having relationships with them, which we don't see a lot, but you know, you can tell in the interactions that he knows his crew. And so I want more men like Pike. I've got two of them here on this podcast, but want more men like that in the world. Sorry, I'm getting emotional. And so for that, I really respect the fact that he was written that way, and that Anson Mount was able to play him and portray him in that way. I am totally on board with him being a favorite captain for so many people, and I do appreciate what he and everyone else brought to Discovery, but I am absolutely ready to go somewhere else. And as I said, like when I started the show this evening, I had kind of wondered, like, at what point did this come to fruition? At what point did they decide to take this show into the future? And I've seen criticism about the writers pandering to certain members of the Star Trek audience that have complained about all of these different facets of Discovery. And I think that that kind of wades into dangerous territory of gatekeeping, because I think that, sure, there are fans out there that are just hating Discovery, like, to hate it. And I don't pay attention to those people. Like, that's not who I'm interested in. I am interested in people like you, Rick, who have criticism, who have valid criticism, and can talk about that criticism without, moving towards a hateful position. I think that it shows much respect from the writers' room and all of the creatives involved, that they have taken the opinions of all fans into consideration. I don't think that's pandering. I don't think that doing what they've done with the show, with bringing in Pike, or with moving it into the future, or wrapping up canon in this way, like, I don't think that any of that is the writers of Discovery going belly up to fans who criticize them.
No.
Like, if that were the case, we would not have, like, the most feminist Star Trek in the history of Star Trek, and that's saying a lot when Star Trek has always been feminist.
Mm-hmm.
I think to me, this change, this reset that's not quite a reset, was a phenomenal decision. And I am so excited to go to a place where we don't have to listen to people pitch about canon. I think that, like, y'all, if canon may not be such a binding thing for me, I understand why it is for other people. And I think that there are all levels of criticism out there that have been valid. No Star Trek is perfect. Like, there, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and it has this legacy, and it continues to survive because it does stick to continuity overall. But trying to put it in this tight little box with a bow on it and turn it into one specific thing, it's never been that. Like, Star Trek has always been an evolution of many, many different people, not just one guy who's been dead for 20 years now. All commendations just go to everyone involved in this show. They've done, given what has gone on behind the scenes, which maybe we'll get a documentary someday, I think they have done the very best that they can, and now the show is going in a direction where they can really come into themselves. And I think that's also in line with most series of Star Trek, and that it takes a few seasons to really get where you need to go. But speaking for myself, like, these have been the best first 2 seasons of Star Trek that I've ever watched. So I'm
Here.
I agree.
I agree.
Yay.
Going into the future is the good choice.
The thing that's so interesting to me right now is that the first season and the second season they're so different,
mm-hmm.
that I'm extremely curious and impatient for season 3, because it's just been. When I said to my son at the beginning of season 2, I feel like season 1 was just a cold open for season 2, and now I'm like, well, now what are we going to get in another? How long is it going to be? Is it really going to be a year?
Yeah, well, they're filming now. So they're filming now. They started filming this month. So I assume fall, maybe, or beginning of next year. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the specific release dates. I don't know if anyone else has
too
any.
long, no matter how
Yes.
long it is. Yeah.
And Oh, what was I going to say? Now I'm forgetting. Yeah, I don't know. I'll come back to that, I guess. Any closing comments from Rick or Jeff there?
Yeah, I would, I would like to put out the caveat that I love Discovery. I have loved it since the beginning, even when there's been stuff that I wasn't too thrilled with, which, like you said, no Star Trek is perfect. I don't particularly like City on the Edge of Forever. So there, I'm a heretic in a lot of ways. So
I can't stand DS9, so there you go.
But Devil in the Dark is my favorite episode too.
Mine too.
But overall, Discovery has been amazing. I think the writers have done phenomenal work against incredible odds. This is the first Star Trek that has had to deal with the internet in any real way. And balancing the realities of creating a television series, dealing with investors and studios and advertisers and whatever, plus this incredibly vocal crowd of consumers who, they either listen to us or they don't. And then, we can't even always make up our minds about what we want for between one day and the next. I think Discovery's writers walk that line so well. And the cast, I have never seen a cast so dedicated to Star Trek in the history of Star Trek. From before the show even started, and when they were appearing at conventions and doing interviews and stuff, it was so clear that they worship at the same altar we do. And they get it. They all get it. Even when they get it in a way we don't necessarily understand, they get it. And I will follow this crew wherever they go. The worst episode of Discovery to me is better than the best episode of just about anything else.
I love that.
I won't say anything specific, but any of y'all that know me know what I'm talking about. So I just, if anyone that's involved in the creation of Discovery happens to hear this, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for 2 wonderful seasons. And I can't wait to see where we're going with the next one, because, we're tabula rasa now. They can do anything they want. And I'm really excited about that possibility.
Jeff?
Yeah, it's cool.
Well, I would echo a lot of Rick's comments about Discovery. I think all of us have seen plenty of attempts at doing prequels over the years, whether they be movies or television shows, and there are a lot of inherent pitfalls to doing prequels, because you're chained to so much that was already put out in the world. Look at the Star Wars prequels when they came out. There's a lot of difficult things. It probably would have been easier for them to just start in the future somewhere and just kind of have a blank slate, not be slaves to that. But I think it was a brave attempt, and I think they executed it as well as they could have. I know we all had our criticisms over the first 2 seasons, but overall I think they handled it very well. And I'm glad that they're finally going to cast those chains off and start on some new adventures that don't necessarily have to play into, TOS and beyond. This is going to be exciting. It's an exciting future for Discovery, and I'm looking forward to also whatever short treks come out in the future. Give us a little more backstory.
Yeah, I guarantee that whenever we get those, we will be back. We're not going to be able to not be here for that. I have no idea what's coming, and I think we're going to get 2 is what we've been promised so far.
2 short treks.
Yeah.
I really like those.
I loved how they played in. I liked we got them before we knew what was coming, and then we got to see. And with Poe, it wasn't till the end of the season that we got to see her come in. Man, yeah, that was a good Poe and Jayla. I like that is very good stuff there. Jane, any closing thoughts?
Oh, I just want to echo what everybody else is saying. It's such good Star Trek, you guys. I've seen so much Star Trek in my day, and I've seen so many reactions, and the level of connection that we have now to the people who are making the show is unprecedented, and that's what's just so amazing to me. I love it. That on Twitter, an actor will talk to you. That still blows me away. Right. And it's really exciting. It's such an exciting time to be a fan, and it's It's so much fun. It's so much better than Usenet.
Yeah,
No, it's a great show. And I mean, and I've always kind of rooted for the Enterprise, the underdog. I've always really, really loved Star Trek Enterprise because, and people bashed it, and it's kind of coming into its own, and people are getting, are looking back on it and saying, hey, that was actually a really good show. And I want to say it was. Discovery is a great show too. Can we stop the whining? Let's go on. So
It's the way I feel about Voyager.
that's the way I feel about all Star Trek. Like I said, like there's good stuff and there's bad stuff. At the end of the day, I think the very basic fact that it's Star Trek and there's a philosophy built in that teaches us how to be better human beings is what really shines through in every series, aside from the acting. But it's like there's always those few episodes that just stick out and resonate so strongly, and those are just like the stepping stones to this utopia, which is not a future thing. Like it's something that we need to work on now. It is. I sometimes refer to Star Trek as the blueprints for how to be a better human being, and I stick by that. That is my favorite thing about Star Trek, is that it teaches us the importance of compassion and communication. And before I cry some more, yes, about 1,000 million commendations. I know there are some of the actors listen to the podcast. I don't know how many. I hope that those who do will certainly tell everyone else how much we have enjoyed their work. It's hard work, and I can't even imagine doing that work while being on social media. Just having that presence and dealing with the criticism, even for like people like Anthony, who's still having to defend himself as a victim of sexual assault, like having to balance that in your social media life, or just having to deal with some of the ridiculous comments that I see and that I get. Like I can't imagine dealing with that, but then still turning around and being so kind to all of the fans and interacting with us, and then seeing other fans like one of the things I love the most about getting to experience this on social media is reading everyone's reactions or seeing someone get super excited when an actor favorites their tweet or responds to them. Like that just gives me life. Like seeing people excited about Star Trek, like this excited.
It's great. I love it.
All right.
Crier.
No, I'm doing really good to hold it in. I'm gonna read this last quote because I think that it really I think that it really just embodies the heart of Star Trek, and I think it can be interpreted in many ways. But this was Burnham talking to Spock before they parted ways, and she said, "There is a whole galaxy out there full of people who will reach for you. You have to let them. Find the person who seems farthest from you and reach for them. Let them guide you." And I think that specifically for Spock, that is something that he needed to hear. But I think that to viewers, that reaching out and listening to other people, I don't think that necessarily confines that to other nice people or other people who agree with you. I think that it is really important. By no means do I want to send a message that you must tolerate being bullied or harassed or being exposed to hate in any way. But I do think that it is very important to not react to something like an opinion that is different from yours by completely shutting someone out or just refusing to attempt to communicate with them. I think that we live in such a divisive time, and especially on social media, we forget that there are other human beings on the other side of the internet. And I just encourage everybody to really listen to that advice and take it to heart, and to reach for other people and to respond when they reach for you, when that is a safe and comfortable place. I think that is really the heart of teaching us how to be better people. Compassion is something that we need more and more of these days. And so I appreciate Discovery for reinforcing that philosophy of Star Trek. And I, as a Star Trek fan, am really proud of what Discovery has done. And I'm going to stop before I bawl. Okay. All right, I did it. So thank you, both of you. It has been such a joy. And especially, we love you, Rick, and we'll talk to you soon. But Jane, this was your first time. We've been friends on Twitter for quite some time.
A long time, yeah.
But it is so thrilling for me to get to talk to my friends. And that is a big part of why I love podcasting, because we can tweet back and forth all the time, but getting voice time with you and getting to know you in this way is super meaningful for me. So I hope that you've had a good first podcasting experience.
Well, I'm a very opinionated person, so I'm always happy to tell everybody what those opinions are. So yes, thank you for having me.
I love that. I think that more women should be opinionated and very confident in their opinions. So I appreciate having your presence here. All right, let's go around the table and tell people where they can find us on social media. Jane, I'll start with you. You already told us once, but tell us again.
I'm on Twitter. JaneNX01 is me on Twitter. If you see that handle anywhere else, it's probably also me. My social media is pretty limited right now. I'm not on Facebook anymore. You can find me on the PlayStation Network if you want to play Anthem with me as Ecelia Archer, which is Captain Archer's wife in the alternate timeline.
Oh my.
Yes. So if you ever see her, that's me. That's really about it for me right now. I've cut back a lot.
Yeah.
I got a lot of video gaming to do, and it takes away from my gaming.
Yep, I'm not a gamer, but you're not alone in pulling away from parts of social media. I think both Jeff and I can attest to that. Rick, where might we find you and your show and your network?
My network still doesn't quite have a home yet. I need to put a website together. It's been kind of something I threw together. I chose a very bad time, beginning of the semester. And anyway, you could just find Starbase: The Next Generation and Open the Iris and Infinite Diversity are all on iTunes and also Google Podcasts. Also, I'm on Twitter. I am Admiral Marius, ADM Marius on Twitter, and I love to talk Trek. Or just about anything else too. I'll BS about anything. On Facebook, the Infinite Diversity discussion group. It's a closed group because we want to keep the bots and the bad guys out. But if you want to come and join our conversations, just answer a couple of silly questions and I'll let you right in.
Sounds good, Jeff. Are you out there anymore?
Yes, as Heather alluded to, I have become a social media outcast for a while. I'm still Warp Factor Jeff on Twitter, so if you mention me or DM me, I will jump on and respond to you. And sometimes you can find me hanging around the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook.
Yep, I highly encourage, if you are looking to attend STLV, the Star Trek Las Vegas convention this year, make sure to find us, the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group on Facebook. And also tune into Shore Leave, which probably pretty soon we'll start doing maybe some STLV prep type stuff. But if you cannot wait for that, then go ahead and check out STLV 101.thetricordertransmissions.com. And that's is a series that Jeff and I did with like all you need to know about the convention. But Marina and Jesse will be talking about other conventions since con season is starting. So make sure to give them a listen at Shore Leave. I am at LLA Posper on Twitter. Feel free to find me there. The show is at disco_trek on Twitter. We are just DiscoTrek on Facebook, and then also the Tricorder Transmissions on Facebook, and then the tricordertransmissions.com. So do continue to follow us. There will be part 2 of the women, a look at women representation in Star Trek Discovery, that's currently being edited. And the women on that panel have much more to say. So we're actually going to do part 3. And so that should come out in a few months, and then we'll definitely do something with the short treks, and we'll see what happens with any other supplementals. I have some ideas, but nothing is set in stone. Man, guys, this is it. I don't want this to be the end. So I thank you again. Thank you for being here for this final episode of the season. And keep talking about Discovery, keep talking about Star Trek. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to hopefully be doing a rewatch of both seasons. I'd like to. I don't know if I will have time, but I guess until season 3, live long and prosper, guys.
Thanks, you too.
Peace and long life.